Hello and welcome to part 4 of our Moho textured squares crochet along. The month is April, the rain is flowing, so let's see what we've got for you this month. So the colour this month won't surprise you. This shade is called Storm Blue. So this is reflective of the April showers that seem to soak me every time I leave the house. And the texture, oh I love this one, it's so nice. It's like, let me see. Oh, can we do the little, so you get like these ridged rows and then like a dip, and they're just beautiful. So this reminds me of like the freshly ploughed and furrowed fields. So on a Monday I work in Bolton in the afternoon, and I drive along a road where there's lots of fields on either side, and they plough them like this, and then somewhat confusingly they cover them in white polythene, so for a few weeks it makes me think it's snowing, which, you know, it equally could be. So this is our square for this month. Now it does, look at it now, it is skewing a little bit. That is just what this stitch pattern does. Don't worry if your work skews. It will skew, it's fine. When we sew them all together, they will all pull themselves into shape and it will become a perfect square. Okay, right then, let's see what we're going to need. So we will need our pattern, got your yarn. Now we're using a hook that is one size bigger than the previous squares that you've made. Okay, so this is because this is a double crochet and slip stitch pattern, so it really draws the fabric in. So we do need a hook one size bigger. So I've done all of my others on a 6, so I'm going to do this on a 6.5. Okay, you will need your yarn needle for sewing in your ends. I'll need some snippy snips, and of course our old friends, the stitch markers. Right then, so let's get going. Pop that out of the way there. We'll leave it there, then you can still see a bit. Sure. Right, so let's get them out of the way there. I've used this yarn before, so it's why it's a little bit curly. So it says that we're going to row 1 and chain 21. Now we want to keep these nice and loosey goosey bouncy chains, so we're not going to pull them tight. We want it to be nice and loose. Okay, you see that there? I'll zoom in a minute. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Okay, so we've got our chain there. Remember when you're doing a count, I just go sort of down one edge and count each of the sort of wraps going over one side. Right, let's get ready then, and we'll have a little zoom in now. Right, so row 2 says starting in the second chain from the hook, work a double crochet into each chain to the end of the row. So we're gonna, this is our working loop, this is our first chain, this is our second chain. So we're going to start in the second chain from the hook, and we're just doing a row of double crochets. So that's 1, 2. The chain here counts as your first one. 3, and we're just double crocheting all the way along. So double crochets, no wrapping, just stick it in, pull up a loop, round and through 2. Okay, let's keep going along here. It's big zoomed in this much, isn't it? Dramatic. Now this one is just a simple 2-row repeat, but it does matter that you do the right row at the right time, otherwise your bumps of your furrows will be on the wrong side, and nobody wants the bumps of the furrows on the wrong side, do they? Heavens above. Right, so we're coming all the way along now. Our stitch markers are going to be our friend on this one, and this pattern does skew a little bit as we're working it, just due to the nature of the 2-loop slip stitches. So it will skew, but once you join it all together, it will stop skewing. Right, so we're here. So we've got our first chain and our first row of doubles. So it's a good idea to do a count. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So them two there, you can see that's like my chain. Right, okay. So we're now going to start our first pattern row. So it says 2 chain. This counts as your first 2-loop slip stitch. So what I recommend is take a stitch marker. So on my hook, I've got working loop, first chain. I'm going to put it in that there, in the front bar of it as it's facing me before I've turned. So it's technically going to be in the back of it, just to keep it out of the way more than anything. If you put it in the front, it'll get under the feet. So I've turned my work. I've got working loop, first chain, second chain, first stitch, ignoring all of that. We're now going to do a row of 2 loop slip stitches. Now these have various names depending on who you're listening to. So you might have done one of these before and it not be called this, but we're calling it a 2 loop slip stitch. So we're going to we start by wrapping around our hook. Okay, so we've wrapped around, insert it in the stitch, wrap your yarn over your hook and pull it back through 1. Now at this stage you have to kind of carefully sort of hold these 2 at the bottom here so that we're holding it in the right shape, and then there is no more wrapping. We just pull this first loop through the second and third, and you'll get used to getting into a bit of a rhythm of it. So that's it done when we're back to 1. So it's wrap, in, back, back, wrap, in, back, back. Now if you look what I'm doing with my sort of middle finger of this hand, I push it through. When I pull it back, at that point with my back there, I put it underneath. You see I'm putting it underneath that middle loop and I'm kind of pushing it forward so that when I pull that through there, it's pushing it into the right shape. So wrap, through, back, back, wrap, through, back, back. And you can see why you want it to be on a slightly bigger hook, because a slip stitch is quite a tight stitch, even if you're doing it as a 2 loop slip stitch. So wrap, through, back, back, through, back, back. And your pattern should appear on the other side. And it's these nice loopy loops that we want that are going to give us our texture. Okay, so let's keep going. Wrap, through, back, back. That stitch marker's annoyingly noisy, isn't it? Through, back, back. And lift it up a bit higher. There we go. So we're still coming along to this end. Wrap, through, back, back. Wrap, through, back, back. Oh, that stitch marker is going to drive me nuts. Oh, wrap, through, back, back. So we've got 2 more to do on here. So this little blobby bit on the end there, that should be my last one. Wrap, through, back, back. Now before we do anything, we do a count. So that's counting as 1 here. So we've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Hurrah! Right, so the next one is we do 2 chains. I know it's a double crochet, but we're going to give it 2 chains because it'll compensate for the slip stitch row that really draws it down. So we do 2 chains and turn, and that counts as your first double crochet. So if you wanted to put a stitch marker in this end to remind you that that's where your last one is, that would not be a terrible thing. So that's going to count as your first stitch there, so ignoring that. Now we're just doing a row of double crochets, and we want to go underneath the V's at the top. That, although we've got this V here, and we're sort of, some people were tempted to go under there, but no, this bar at the front, this diagonal bar, is what's going to create your texture. So if we work underneath it, you will lose that. So turn your work slightly, look for the V's going along the top, and this is where we're working. So that's, we're ignoring that first one. So we're going above that bar and in, and a double crochet. So this is just a normal row of double crochets all the way along into here, right? So we go double, double. Now I've got a stitch marker at each end, mate, being noisy. That's annoying, isn't it? So again, the ones at the top, not this V at the front here. And you can see we are revealing this lovely row of furrows. Delightful. Right, so we go double all the way along. Double, double, double. Lovely, lovely. I like this one a lot. You can fly through this. Once you get in the rhythm of this, you can fly through these in no time. And the border around the edge isn't too arduous because it's mostly sort of doubles and slips down the end, so it's a nice solid edge on your raw edges even. Right, so we're getting to the end here. So I've got 1 here, that's undeniable. And then there's this sort of like, what is all this nonsense going on here? So we're going to do one here. Now this stitch, so it says on your thing that the penultimate, so it's the one before the last one, 2 loop slip stitch is easy to ignore because it just looks like a bit of a sort of mess, which is why we need to make sure we've got this one in here. So I've got one here, so let's do that one there. Now the last one, a bit like when you're doing, just wrap around, what am I doing? Like when you're doing a half treble, the top of the stitch is sort of looks a little bit disjointed from the bottom of it, but this is the top of that first 2 loop slip stitch. So we need to find the V on the top, sneak it in there, do yourself a double crochet in that one, and then your last one goes into that chain there where you have your stitch marker, your giant stitch marker. All right, let's get that out of there. And it's that in there, so we want a double crochet in there. Right, okay, so let's have a quick count. So we've got 1 there, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 18 19 20. Yay! So we're then going back to repeating row 3. So 2 chains, 1 2, giant massive annoying slip stitch in, stitch marker in, turn. So remember, we go working loop, first chain, second chain, first stitch, ignoring all that, starting in here. So we're now on, if you can't see the texture, if the texture's on the other side, then you're on the slip stitch row. If you can see the texture, then you're on a double crochet row. So we're going, so it's wrap, in, back, back. First one's always a little finicky. So wrap, in, remember, and the V's along the top, not along this edge. So wrap, in, back, back, wrap, in, back, back. You'll be saying this in your sleep. Wrap, in a Lancashire accent, hopefully. In, back, back, wrap, in, back, back. And you keep that, if you keep that wrap not too tight, that's what's giving you these lovely sort of rows of bouncy waves on this side. You see those? Oh, lovely bouncy waves. Wrap in, back, back. Wrap in, back, back. All the way along to the end. So I'll just show you the end of this one. And then I think you're probably all right on your own for a little bit, aren't you? So we'll just have a look what the end of this row looks like though when we get to the, oh my God, that stitch marker is driving me nuts. Taking it out. Get out. Don't worry, I'll keep an eye on it. You use quieter stitch markers. So wrap in, back, back. Wrap in, back, back. So we've now got, we can see that our stitch marker is marking that last one where we need to go in. So I've got 1, 2, 3 left to go in. Okay. Wrap in, back, back. Wrap in, back. And it really is that sort of like, I'm putting my nail right at the bottom of that one and pushing that front bit forwards so that it makes it nice and easy to get your hook through. Back and back. Okay. Now, as you can see, it is starting to skew a little bit, and the more you make this square, the more it will look like this, like a, is that a rhombus? I don't know. Parallelogram? I don't know. But a shape that doesn't have right angles, they'll be slightly skewed. That is fine. We want that to happen. When we sew them together, they will all pull themselves into shape. All right, so then to start my next row, it's going to be my two chain, annoying stitch marker inserted in there, and then turn, and then remember we are now going above these diagonal lines in those holes in there. So we go first working loop, first chain, second chain, first stitch, ignore all that, in that hole there, and we're just doing a row of double crochets all along here, double, 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 all the way along. Right, and as you can see, it's definitely skewing, but the numbers are right, and we know that because we've counted them. So as long as you're still getting 20 stitches, if your edges are skewing, do not panic. I know you won't believe me and you go, oh, it's not coming out straight. It's good, fine, carry on. Right, I will get to the end of this one then, and then I'll come back and we'll have a look at how we do our border and sewing in our ends. Okay, see you in a bit. Right, so I have now reached the stage where it's a square, and you can see it is skewing a little bit, and that is fine. So if I fold it across to measure, yeah, I'm quite happy, because we want to end after one of the double crochet rows. So if I tried to put another 2 on there, because I'd need to do another furrows row, 2 loop slip stitch row, and another one, which would put an extra like 1.5 centimetres on. So I'm quite happy with that there, even though it's a slight rhombus. I don't know, I still haven't looked it up. Right, so we're going to do our slip stitch border. We need to make sure that this side is facing us, because this is the right side and we want the border facing up. So we go this way around. So we start off here, and now if we do our little patented method of putting a stitch marker halfway along, so that we know we need 10 by the time we get to that point there. So it's easier to count to 10 than it is to count to 20. Half as easy, I believe. Twice as easy? I don't know. So by the time we get to here, we want to have had 10 slip stitches. So if you have a quick, we'll do a quick sort of eye count. So if we went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's looking about right. So we kind of like want 1 in each sort of. So if we went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it's roughly sort of 1 per row. So let's see how that works out. Now remember, if you are finding that you're doing these a bit too tight, you could always go up a hook size for your slip stitch rows. We are going to be working back through these when we join them together with a crochet hook. So it's worth making sure that it's nice and loosey-goosey. Now at this end here, let's zoom in a little bit. At this edge here, so you can see I could go in there, and it'd bring it down a bit. What is a little bit more ideal is if I can go under 2 strands of this chain along the edge, so that those, if I can get under those 2 strands, that is one of my turning chains, and that will give me a nice sort of neat edge. So remember, pull up your first loop so it's a bit bigger than the one already on your hook. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6. These stitch markers are driving me mad, but I need to leave that in to show you. That's 6. What did I say? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Look, losing the plot due to stitch markers. Let's try and get under 2 strands instead of 3 here. So that's 6. Oh, we're going up to there. Right, we'll go over to, we'll skip a bit now. 7, 11, 8, 9, and 10. So I'm just before the stitch marker, but that's all right, because I've still got another 10 to do there. So that was 10. So we'll go 11, 12, 13, come on, 14, 15, and we'll have a 16, oh, itchy nose, 17, we'll go under this one down here, 17, 18, no, I want to go further in than that, 19, and down into this corner stitch we do our 20. Give it a pull, make sure it's not pulling it in and you've got plenty of stretch on it. Chain, so then we do 1 across each one of these along this edge. So this is our chain edge, so there should be 20 anyway. So 1, 2, making sure we're going under the 2 bars there. 3, 4, oh, stood on my wool. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 and 20. All right, so the reason I've left this one in at this like the start of your last row is because it's quite easy to get to about here and think, oh, well, if you don't put it in, you go, oh, that's probably the end there, but we need to make sure we go right up to there. So we want to put my stitch marker in halfway along there, so we know we want 10 up to the stitch marker. So I did my 20, so 1 chain, and then we're going back into the same one as that 20, so it's 1, 2, come on you monkey, oh, split it, 3, oh, stood on it again now, it's all going wrong, isn't it? So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 2 strands, 10. Lovely. And finishing it off we go. Oh, come on. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Oh, I lost it. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and we want to go in at the base of that chain there, 20. Then we do our 1 chain, snip it off, pull all the way through that 1 chain, remember, because we're going to do our invisible, oh dear, I don't know my own strength, look. Ugh. Right, that can go. Where's the bin? So we've pulled this through, so we're going to do our invisible join here. So I've got my last loop there. So we go underneath, we're going to look for our first slip stitch that we did. So that was our chain there. So we're going underneath our first slip stitch. Oh, I've not done the border across the top end, have I? Oh, I've got way too excited. Forget that. Let's pop this back in. What a naughty monkey. Look at that. Easy done, isn't it? So now somebody said to me the other day about, do I need to do it across that final edge? And you do, yeah. So so we can pull that. That's, yeah, there. So right, so I need to reattach my yarn and do my border along here. So if you don't do the border along here, it will just look slightly different, because if you see all of these, this is where we're going to be working through these here. So it will leave that bar exposed. Whereas if you go through this one, instead of the slip stitch, then you'll get a slightly different effect on the fourth side than you will on the other 3 sides. So you do need to do the border around all 4 sides. I know it can be a little bit of a pain in the bum, but it is absolutely worth it. Oh, I was a bit too eager there, wasn't I? Naughty no. So we're going back along here, and you know what the punishment is for that, don't you? I have now got 2 extra ends to sew in. So pay attention to what you're doing. Don't snip it off too early, otherwise you have to sew in more ends. Right, so we're coming up to this end here. So this is my last one that I'm aiming for there. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. And then the last one is in my chain. Come on. Oh dear. Oh, 20. Okay, and then, seems so long since we've done this, we do one chain and we snip it off. Oh, look at that, comfy mumphy. Right, we then pull it all the way through. Shows you, see, no one's perfect. Right, so we've got our chain here, so we want to go underneath the 2 loops of this first slip stitch, under there, like that. Pull it gently, pull, pull, pull. And then we're going back in the chain where we came out of and through. See, we're going through a bit of the work, take a bit of a bigger bite. Pull it to match the tension. Lovely. And then sew our gajillion ends in. Now this there's alternate rows of double crochets. So doubles are the nicest ones to sew your stitches into because they're a nice sort of dense low down stitch, so you can hide your ends very effectively. So I'm going all the way along this first one here. Pull, pull, pull. Match the tension. I was gone a bit tight there. I got a bit excited. Lovely. Pick up one of the horizontal, vertical, whichever, I don't know, whichever way I'm not, and back through half like that. There you go. So that's your first end done. Now look, my yarn ran out as well in the middle, so I've got even more ends to do. God, like I'm being well and truly punished. Right, so I've already sewn these in halfway. If you have to change mid-square, if you start to work over your ends a little bit already, I've already sewn them in over along that bit there. See, this end comes from here, so then you only need to sew them in half as far. Like half as many times on the way back. You only need to do your one, so we'll sew that in there. So I'll make you watch me sewing in all my ends as you can feel my pain and punishment. Pull, pull, pull. There, lovely. Ooh, lovely. Right, let's sew these mistakes back in here. Sorry, I don't mean it, yarn. I do. Right, so we're going along here. And pull. This is only a little skinny end. I didn't leave very much for this one, did I? Honestly, cannot get the staff. And then back. Oh, missed it completely. This is why we leave nice long ends. I'm rubbish today, aren't I? Until I'm getting ready to go on my holidays. Mentally clocking off. I'll be back by the time you see this, I think. Will I? Will I still be there? I don't know. Don't rob my house anyway. Everything of any worth is with me. I've got my crochet hooks and my yarn. You're welcome to the rest. Right, so I'll sew this end in down here. So I'm going under the 2 loop slip stitches here a little bit. So they look slightly different. What's wrong with me today? And then back under these. Pick up the scissors now. And the final one. Lovely. Right, let's zoom out a bit, then you can see what I'm up to. Right then, here is our finished square. As you can see, it skews, and I've said that is fine. When we join them all together, that will not be a problem. So let's have a look what we've got so far. So we've had a rainy January and a January option part B. We've got our waffly February, and again, don't worry that they're slightly different sizes. They will all pull themselves into shape. So we've got version 1, version 2. So we've got January, February, March, and now we've got April. Well, that's a third of it done. We're a third of the way through. Oh, I'm a bit sad already. Right, so you'll probably be like, oh God, get it over with. Right. So that is your square for April. Give me a shout as ever if you've got any questions. I will catch up with you all a bit later in the month, and we'll see if anybody needs any further guidance on anything. And then keep showing us your pics if you finished articles. Right, excited, and we will see you soon. All right, thank you for watching. Bye bye.